Kamala Harris and mainstream media just can't hide it anymore as former President Donald Trump's taking the post-debate polls by storm. I mean, are we really surprised when even the young voters are showing up for our former president and commander-in-chief?
I think it's just a matter of time before more of these kids become Trumpers.
Donald Trump didn't win the majority of young people in Iowa, but they are here at his rally in New Hampshire to see him.
He doesn't lie to us. He's not a polished politician, which I think is a benefit, because he's not going to try and hide and lie.
I think what he's done with the country while he was in office was fantastic. Everything seemed to be running smoother. Prices for everything were much cheaper and affordable for everybody, so that kind of kept me with him.
His positions on the economy, his positions on foreign policy, on trade, he is very pro-American. He's pro-me, pro the aspirations that I have for the future. I am definitely for Trump. I have been to Haley events. I tried to go to a Ron event. Forgive me, I couldn't put up with it. It was too boring.
A huge theme beyond policy or even Donald Trump himself, the sense of community that people feel from being a part of the MAGA movement and coming to rallies like this one.
And I'm also hearing major support for our former president, Donald Trump, coming from Latin communities in Arizona. Now, from what I've heard from my friends there, they just consider themselves Americans, and so they're voting for Trump. Matter of fact, it'll be the third time for a lot of them to do so. So to Democrats, they say stop pandering. They can think for themselves, and what they're saying is that they love America and they support Trump. And we're not talking about a silent majority anymore either. The latest polls show Donald Trump is already beating Harris in 3 important swing states. And you can tell that Democrats are panicking, guys. I mean, just watch Obama's former economic advisor, Robert Wolf, struggle for words as they talk about these latest poll numbers.
Trump pulling ahead in 2 of the crucial battleground states. He now leads Vice President Harris by 5 in Arizona. Remember, Arizona was just down to, tens of thousands of votes. Very slim margin in 2020. He trailed by 5 last month in Arizona. So that's a move. In the New York Times Siena College poll, to his benefit, he is up 2 points in North Carolina right now after trailing there by 2 in August. And he is hanging on to his 4-point lead in the state of Georgia. Here's a look at how close these states were in 2020, which I was just mentioning. Biden won Georgia and Arizona by less than 1 point. Former President Trump took North Carolina by less than 2. So with that, let's bring in Tomi Lahren, host of Tomi Lahren is Fearless on Outkick, and Robert Wolf, former economic advisor to President Obama and founder and CEO of 32 Advisors, both Fox News contributors. Great to have you with us. I want to show you this by Harry Anton at CNN and our own Bill Hemmer, great board operators when it comes to really analyzing where these numbers are moving. Let's watch this and we'll get your take.
Kamala Harris carries these Great Lake battleground states, but of course, Donald Trump carries North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, and that leads to 276 electoral votes for Kamala Harris to 262 for Donald Trump.
This is what Democrats are hoping for. You're one shy with 19 electoral votes there in Pennsylvania. I haven't clicked on Nevada yet because you've got that one out here in Nebraska, which would be enough to give Kamala Harris the presidency.
So obviously both sides, Robert Wolf, have a path to 270 at this point. Pennsylvania could be the deciding place, or potentially Nebraska, which has electoral votes that are divided up after they give 2 to the winner. They divide them up a little bit. Your take on where this stands right now, given his strength that we see now in the Sun Belt?
Yeah, it feels to me that the vice president is a bit of an underdog still. I think on the economy, although she's narrowed the gap, she's still down somewhere between 5 and 10. So it doesn't surprise me that the Sun Belt still seems to be going towards former President Trump. But it feels like the blue wall starting to creep back towards Harris. There was a poll today that has her up 7 in Wisconsin. And the truth is they have hundreds of millions of dollars of Harris campaign and thousands of volunteers and over 300 offices. So the next 45 days is going to be single-handedly about get out the vote in those 7 states.
Yeah. Now, honestly, guys, if you ask me, I really have a hard time believing that Kamala Harris is leading or even close to Donald Trump in any state. You know what I mean? Even Democrat Senator Joe Manchin recently pledged that he won't endorse Vice President Kamala Harris in this upcoming presidential election after she revealed her support for doing away with the filibuster to pass abortion law. Check this out.
What did you make of the remarks that Vice President Harris made regarding the carve-out of the filibuster?
I think I've been very clear my whole career is that the 60-vote threshold that we basically operate under in the Senate is essential for us to maintain the type of I think the type of longevity we need in our bills, the type of security in our bills, and basically how we do business. It makes us different any place in the world. We're the most deliberate body in the world. So I've been very, very, very clear on how strongly I believe that when you go down that slippery path, you don't just do it for one issue. There's so many important issues that people have. What's important to me might not be important to you, and vice versa. So anyone says, well, I'm just going to eliminate the filibuster or the 60-vote threshold for this one subject. Well, Harry Reid tried that with just the district and circuit courts, circuit judges, and then the Republicans came back and did it for the Supreme Court. So once you start down that in policy and on policies, you'll have everything under the sun thrown at, and it'll just dissipate. And then you flip-flop back and forth. You have no continuity whatsoever and no stability in what we do here.
Would you endorse her for president then?
I'm not endorsing. I'm not endorsing.
Well, there you go, guys. That is a bona fide Democratic senator saying that he's not going to endorse the presidential candidate Kamala Harris. Like he said, he's wary of the flip-flopping and going down that slippery path because you don't just do it for one issue. This after Kamala Harris, a former senator herself, told Wisconsin Public Radio that she thinks that they should eliminate the filibuster for Roe, meaning the vice president wants to kind of push abortion rights in a way that would bypass Congress. Hence, Senator Manchin, known to be quite the contrarian against Democrats, he said that he's not going to endorse her. Now, just to be clear, he won't be backing former President Donald Trump in the election either, but man, he may as well have with what he said about their candidate. You know what I mean? They said Kamala Harris won the debate, but post-debate polls in 3 key battleground states, they beg to differ. Arizona from a Harris +5 to a Trump +5. Georgia, Trump maintaining his point lead, and North Carolina from a Harris +2 to a Trump +3. I mean, I think it's pretty clear what people are really thinking here, isn't it? And honestly, like, who would believe that any majority of the polls in the country would want 4 more years of this? Am I right? Instead, the truth is finally coming out. The polls found that voters in these states, they were worried about their own future and the future of our nation. So they resonate with the things that Donald Trump is saying, like how our country is being lost, we're a failing nation, and if we don't turn things around, then we're in trouble. In fact, a plurality said the nation's problems are so bad that it's in danger of failing. Tyler Stenbridge, 41 years old, a fire captain in Centerville, Georgia, and a Republican who said that he voted for Mr. Trump in 2020 and intended to support him again in November. He said this, "Whatever road we're on right now, just to him, does not look like it's going to end well." And now we're seeing this exact thinking prevail in the polls, and that's why people want Donald Trump back in office. Drop a yes in the comments of the video, guys. Let me know if you guys agree. And if you guys want more hard-hitting content straight to your phones, straight to your tablets, your laptops, your TVs, definitely subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. It's totally free to do so, and you'll be helping out the channel a ton. We're so close to hitting 600,000 subs. Let's do it. And it's not just the polls that Donald Trump is taking by storm, folks. Also, early mail-in voting. They just found out that vote-by-mail data in 3 key states showed the edge Democrats enjoyed in 2020 has plummeted. Now, here's why this is something that one expert said is a great sign for Republicans and former President Donald Trump. So according to Jimmy Keady, founder and president of the JLK Political Strategies, a Republican consulting firm, voters complain all the time about text messages, about getting mail, about getting robocalls to go vote, and campaigns are now sophisticated enough that once you go vote, these stop. And the exciting part, once a voter goes to vote and those stop, that allows resource allocation from that voter to another voter. Getting those lower propensity voters out could play a huge role in states like Pennsylvania and North Carolina, which are both expected to once again be swing states with razor-thin margins. In fact, the comments come as the Democratic edge in the vote-by-mail requests has shrunk significantly in Florida, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. Something that's way different in voter habits that have defined the last 2 elections. Now, according to the data, the Democratic lead in vote-by-mail requests has shrunk by over 5% in Florida, nearly 15% in North Carolina, and over 35% in Pennsylvania. And with the election being the closest that we've seen in history, every vote counts. Vice President Kamala Harris holds a lead of less than a point in Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, Donald Trump holds a similar size lead in North Carolina, at least according to Real Clear Politics polling average, meaning The ground game to turn out voters on each side could be the deciding factor in this election. So now with this mail-in and early voting shift in the GOP will help the party compete with Democrats in an area where Republicans were at a decided disadvantage in 2020. According to Keaty, as Republicans, we have to start getting the base to early vote, to do mail-in ballot, to do these things that we know are safe and secure to get people out to the polls. He says the Democrats have done this really well for years. So why can't we? Because let me tell you guys, now is the time to strike. Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party, they're weak and they're getting desperate. Case in point, the vice president is reportedly planning to visit the southern border in Arizona, which critics are calling a political stunt. The fact is, should Harris visit the border, it would be her first since she visited El Paso, Texas in 2021, as she faced pressure over the whole escalating crisis at the southern border and her role overseeing root causes of migration, which led her to being dubbed the border czar. And I really don't think it's a coincidence that the border visit's coming at a time where numbers at the polls show that she's trailing former President Donald Trump significantly on the issue of illegal immigration and border security. A recent Reuters Ipsos poll found that 46% preferred Donald Trump on immigration over the 36% who preferred Kamala Harris. And this Arizona border visit from Harris, if it ever does happen, probably too little too late from the Democratic candidate. Because no one's forgetting both Harris's role in the administration as it oversaw the enormous migrant crisis and also her past policy positions as a senator and as a presidential candidate in 2019. Fox News even had a video of her chanting down with deportation as a parade in 2018. Not to mention, the vice president has called for all sorts of amnesty for illegal immigration, including the expansion of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, the DACA, by executive order. She also said that she would use parole authority to create a parole in place program to put those illegal immigrants on a path to citizenship. She also backed cuts to Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Customs and Border Protection, basically defunding the two critical border agencies. Representative Andy Biggs from Arizona has nothing good to say about the whole thing. He says Kamala Harris is not going when it was at its height. She's going to probably get a totally cleaned up photo op. And Biggs guess she's going to get the same treatment that some others get. They're going to clean up the desert, clean everything so it looks clean for her instead of as bad as it is environmentally, as well as danger for the people coming across. Now, as for the VP, Biggs says that she's going down there so she can get some clean pictures, take it over at the border like she knows what she's going on. They asked Biggs what he hopes Harris learns on any trip to the border. The Arizona representative said that he hopes Kamala learns that they could stop this almost immediately by reinstating Title 42, reinstating Remain in Mexico. They need to stop the CBP One app because in the last 15 months, 815,000 roughly they brought in. They need to stop the Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela CHNV program. There are things that they could do now almost immediately shut us down. Biggs says he wants her to understand that, but he doesn't think that she's going to understand that. R.G. Human, president of the National Immigration Center for Enforcement and visiting advisor at the Heritage Foundation, also had some choice words about a Kamala Harris visit to the border. He said that her entire campaign is built on gaslighting the American people, that she doesn't believe what she actually believes, that she didn't do what she actually did. The immigration issue is a shining example of this. For him, until Kamala Harris goes door to door apologizing to angel families or heads back to Washington and hands Joe Biden a pen, the American people won't be fooled by this final stretched nonsense. They make a good point here, but what do you guys think?
I read a book a long time ago and it basically said something that was really powerful and profound to me, and it said something along the lines of, look at your 5 closest friends, and typically your income is an average of your 5 closest friends. Now, with that being said, I was kind of like thinking, okay, well, how do I find people who made way more than me so I could increase my chances of having a higher income? I mean, it only made sense, right? For less than a cup of coffee a day, for less than $1 a day, join a powerful network of people who are ready to change their lives for the better. And I will be putting a limit on this group, so get in while you can. Be positively motivated by others who are also on the same pursuit. So I'm going to leave a link for you guys so you can join me over on the Life Pursuit Network in the description down below this video. So check it out, guys, and let's not be a victim of this great wealth transfer that is taking place right now. I mean, we see the same thing with Democratic VP Tim Walz with just 4 interviews and no press conferences. I mean, it's just unbelievable that their campaign thinks that they can get away with this, but apparently it can. But I guess this approach is necessary for them, especially since Kamala Harris was only placed on the ticket after Joe Biden's senility
became way too severe in public for those to camouflage efforts to work any longer. But also the fact that Kamala Harris has a history of flip-flopping on key issues, something that the media often overlooks. Meanwhile, Waltz is still notorious for his failure to prevent the largest COVID fraud case in the country. $25 million stolen from funds that were supposed to feed children, not to mention his handling of the Minneapolis riots following George Floyd's death. Now, to compare, the Republican candidate Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance, they've done over 70 interviews and press conferences in the exact same period. J.D. Vance alone has done more than 7 times the combined total of Harris and Waltz. Talk about transparency. 70 versus 3? That's a no-brainer. But let's put it this way, guys. I totally get why Harris is avoiding the spotlight. I mean, she oversaw the Biden administration's border disaster, as the borders are, allowing millions upon millions of illegal migrants into the country. At least according to Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, has contributed to rising unemployment. Harris, a longtime leftist, has also supported controversial policies from hating Israel and backing sex change surgery for ICE detainees to plenty of other woke madness. I guess her silence this campaign season does say a lot. Her team likely knows that the more voters learn about her real views, the worse it will be for her. And the same thing goes for Tim Walz. This seems to be a deliberate effort to withhold important information, preventing Americans from making an informed choice in November. And none of the so-called guardians of democracy seem to be concerned about it. So let me know if I'm making sense to you guys. Are you seeing the Kamala Harris crisis like I am? Now, with all these different people defending her, Kamala Harris doesn't just come off as mediocre anymore. In fact, she comes off as pretentious, shallow, vapid, and even condescending. You know what I mean? Phillips played a clip of Kamala Harris responding to a question about whether her voters were better off than they were 4 years ago. See if you guys can spot her answer here as it's written out. We came in during the worst public health epidemic in centuries. We came in after the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War, and a lot of it due in large part to the mismanagement by the former president as it relates to the COVID pandemic and obviously January 6th. And we had a lot of work to do to clean up a mess. As of today, we have created over 16 million new jobs, over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. We have the lowest black unemployment rate in generations. Yeah, as Abby Phillips said, Harris should have something quick and understandable ready in response to a question like that, adding, and that really wasn't it. CNN political commentator Ashley Allison said she wished Harris would have alluded to the next 4 years in her answer to the question about whether Americans were better off during Donald Trump's presidency. Now, to really understand what Kamala Harris is trying to hide by evading all these hard questions, we need to just kind of like look at who she is exactly. An undeniable part of what some would argue is the worst administration in U.S. history. Because see guys, despite what the propaganda media would have you believe, it's the economy that is preventing Vice President Kamala Harris from breaking through with the American people. So no matter how much puffed positive coverage the media gives her, she just can't seem to establish a clear lead. Why? Well, one made up word: Bidenomics. More precisely, it's the impact on the economy for which Kamala Harris is partly responsible. I mean, you guys saw the clips. On the rare occasion where Kamala Harris actually allows someone from the press to publicly ask her about the economy, she gives the strangest answers. You could even call it weird if you want. During the ABC News presidential debate, David Muir asked her, when it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago? And guess what? Kamala Harris said that she was raised as a middle-class kid and gave a clumsy biographical answer which included zero policy. A few days later, during her only interview since the debate, her response to a question from anchor Brian Taff about her specific plans for the economy, it was better memorized but equally unresponsive. And yes, it was still about growing up as a middle-class kid, that she grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn. Y'all remember that line, right? Because what else would she talk about? Bidenomics? For nearly 4 years, she and Joe Biden have been claiming that Bidenomics would bring down the cost of living, invest in infrastructure, empower families, and make life better for all Americans. Well, here we are, 4 years later, and it just simply hasn't happened. And hey, that's not going to stop her from making the same claims about her mystery plan on the campaign trail. Don't believe me? Just look at the numbers. Rasmussen reports found that only 20% of Americans wanted policies in general to stay the same. Nearly 3 out of 4, or 73%, do want things to change. Only 23% said economic conditions were improving. By contrast, 52% said that things were getting worse. In parallel, Scott Rasmussen, a separate polling outfit, reported that only 26% of Americans thought that the economy was excellent or good. Now, a full 74% rated the economy poor. So guys, what do you want for dinner? So I was raised as a middle-class kid, you know what I mean? Kamala Harris spent months writing one speech, and it's not even a very good one. Something your English teacher would probably have given her a D+ on as an assignment. Do you guys know the feeling? But hey, that's not gonna stop Democrats and their mainstream media allies, will it, right? In fact, former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton said Kamala Harris doesn't have to defend her policies, that it would be a double standard to do so. Yeah, crazy, right? Check this out.
She does not have to do it, Kara. I'm going to just cut to the chase. In fact, she's put out policies on her campaign website. Anybody who's truly interested can go and read about them. She referenced policies. She actually doesn't just have policies and concepts. She has, plans about what to do. I think it's it's a double standard, and it's a double standard that is partly because they are still getting to know her, but also because they're still grappling with the idea like, oh, am I really going to vote for a woman to be president and commander-in-chief?
Is there anything Democrats or Kamala can do to even get at least some good faith from the American people at this point, at this late game, at this late stage in the game? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments, guys. We'll be sure to pick this up again in a future video. Also, have you guys subscribed to the channel? Hit the notification bell. Great. Then you can be sure you won't miss out on future videos. And while you guys are working on that, we have a lot more videos on the channel for you guys to check out. Now, I personally recommend our recent one where we talked about another notorious Democrat, Fannie Cash Money Willis. After her 15 minutes of fame from going after Donald Trump in the Georgia election interference case and failing big time, she's now dodging all sorts of investigations and whistleblower allegations. Definitely a must watch, you guys, so you guys can check that one out after this one. Anyway, thanks so much for hitting the like button. Thank you for subscribing. I'll see y'all next time.